Yes, we're ready to go.
Let us know.
I welcome everyone. Do we have any changes or additions to the agenda? Don't think so. And anybody here for public comment?
No.
I don't think so. So can we turn to the draft minutes from May? There was no meeting in June. If anybody has any comments or questions?
I have just a suggestion about historic Ithaca. If there's I'd like to keep some regular contact with them about their efforts to diversify their board.
But board members,
Yes.
I'm voting that this was going to be part of the staff report. But the new executive director, whose name is Zach Lifton, reached out to me when I told him that you all had, and the IURA board had approved their CBDO, and said that he had reviewed the meeting minutes, or not the minutes, the recording.
Yes.
And that he heard the discussion comments, and so that is something that he said he would be more vigilant about. So yes, we can, I can ask him at his quarterly report, or he can come in here, or however you want to do it.
Thank you.
Okay.
What was the question, Mary, that you wanted to add that part of the conversation into the minutes because you talked about it, or?
Well, we'd spoken about it the last time and how they were going to diversify their board, but they didn't have a plan about how they were going to go about that.
I see.
It was like just sitting there and we'll get to it, or I
Mhm,
could be misquoting that too.
mhm.
So I just had some concerns about how they were going to move forward with having their board more diversified.
I see. But you're fine with the minutes as is?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so is there a motion to approve the minutes? Okay, second. Okay, all in favor? Great. Okay, so on to our first new business. I think we have a guest here to help us talk through the resolution for 215 Cleveland Ave.
So I just wanted to quickly introduce Leslie Ackerman for those who don't know her. Leslie manages the construction of homebuyer projects. Is that correct? The Community Housing Trust. So she's here to talk about the request that she submitted regarding our projects from 2022 and 2023, which you saw in the resolutions. And I guess with that, take it away.
Turn that guy on. I didn't prepare any presentation as such. Anissa said that I should come prepared to answer questions that you might have about the projects, the request, where we are now, timeline for completion, or anything else. So I guess I will leave it at that unless folks would like a little more background, but I'm assuming you already read the very lengthy letter that I submitted, so I don't need to bore you with that a second time.
So what I can say is, in addition to the letter that Leslie just mentioned, that's in your packet, just a reminder that the funding that we're talking about for the projects, the 3 projects involved, which is 2 years of funding for Cedar Street and 1 for the 215 Cleveland Avenue project, is home funding. So we've been talking about the timeliness test from HUD a lot. That is for CDBG funding only. Home funding has its own regulations, own timeline, which is in the chart and the resolutions. So I know that timeliness has been top of mind for all of us. So I just wanted to emphasize that these projects do not in any way contribute or take away from our ability to reach timeliness.
So one of my questions is there any difficulty technically in making a change like this?
No, it's because as I think our primary concern would be being able to meet the ultimate deadline for home, which is 5 years total from when we receive it. And even with the extensions that they've requested, we don't anticipate having any problems. There is one unknown, which Leslie and I talked about, which is for 215 Cleveland, obtaining the letter of map amendment from FEMA. So that process has, they have not gone through that process before, and they understand from others that have that it can take weeks or months, but we don't have the additional situation of federal agencies having a different staff level than they did in the past. So we talked about that, and that's part of the reason that the times or the extension dates you see in the resolutions are different from what Leslie indicated she thought was necessary in her letter, because we just really encourage having enough time for any unknown circumstance to occur.
That's my second. Yeah, you sure there's all the time you need, because this is the time to
Right.
December if it's necessary.
Anissa and I talked about that, and I talked about that internally with my folks, which is why we extended Sears to the end of April rather than the end of February, which I had originally proposed. I feel pretty comfortable with the end of February because we now have a firm date when Sears is going on the market, which is an open house to which you'll all be invited on August 23rd, which is, we had to push it back a couple weeks, but that's going to be 2 weeks from tomorrow, I think. So those will be on the market. We expect that they will be under contract very quickly. And then it's just a question of how long does it take to get to closing for the buyers. It will probably be February, but April is safer. So April is what we settled on. I did speak to our civil engineering folks at TG Miller yesterday about the LOMA process, because we have not only 215 Cleveland, but another project in the village of Freeville that is impacted by the new flood maps. And they have been working on LOMA requests for some other clients, and they haven't had any that have been recently submitted and processed through to approval. So they don't have a gauge of if the usual, what they've said in the past was weeks to months. And they don't know yet if that is going to be many months or if they're still in the same weeks to months time frame. I think that September, unless we are denied the LOMA, I think that September should be more than ample for FEMA to figure out their review, because we expect we'll have that application in by, I want to say October to be safe. It'll probably be sooner than that. If we don't get the LOMA, we have bigger issues than this grant expiring because it won't be a sellable house to a low income family. It will just be unaffordable with the flood insurance burden. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. In any event, that's the very long-winded answer to, do we think September for Cleveland is enough time? And it has to be, basically.
Leslie, are the Sear Street homes also in the new flood zone?
They are
impacted?
not, thank goodness. It's sort of strange.
Yeah,
I'm not a geo water person thing. They're, less than a block away from Cascadilla Creek, but the flood experts have not put any part of that neighborhood in the 100-year flood zone.
Leslie provided some pictures of the current status of the homes in question, which I'll email to you all after, if you haven't been by, but they appear to be finished from the outside.
Yeah.
So they're far along in the process, but you've said that the interior work is more
Yeah.
advanced than expected.
The interior, so they're modular homes. This was our first project in which we acted as the general contractor for a modular build rather than hiring a general contractor who would orchestrate everything. It turned out to be a bigger piece of work than we anticipated, and there were lots of things that the scope of the work that needed to happen outside of the modules being constructed by the modular factory bigger jobs than we anticipated. And the interior finishing, as Anissa alluded to, where the modules mate, the finishing of that interior is more complex than just slap up some spackle like you would on a crack in a wall. So that's required some additional work, a greater scope of electrical finishing and plumbing finishing as well. So it's been a lot of balls to juggle, but we're getting very close. And the fact that we've got the open house now firmly scheduled says we all believe we're going to be there.
There's an open house. I thought you had pre-select buyers.
We do not pre-select buyers, and part of the reason is that usually we've got people interested for many, many, many months before a house is ready to sell. And if we had pre-selected people, we would then have to evaluate their financial eligibility again. Sometimes people who are interested back here have a different financial situation. They got a better job, they're no longer income eligible, or they've lost a job and they're no longer going to be able to qualify for the mortgage. And so we don't have any selection of buyers, but we keep an extensive interest list. And then we we list the house on the multiple listing service so that's publicly publicized. And we have an open house for all and sundry. So it's, well beyond our interested folks. Anyone who's looking for a house is going to see what's on the MLS. The open house is sort of the kickoff date of the houses are officially for sale. We'll always have some of the folks from our wait list who are ready with their documents to submit and say, count me in. And they've already been pre-screened for income eligibility and other aspects of eligibility. We usually allow 2 to 3 weeks for any interested buyers to submit the documentation that's needed. And then if we have more buyers than homes, which is usually the case, then we do a lottery on an announced date. The folks can come to the lottery or not. It's literally names in a hat, and names get pulled out. And if those folks are, still eligible and still want the home, then they get to buy a home. The 2-bedroom homes are going to be $160,000. The 3-bedroom homes are going to be $188,000. Those figures are calculated to be affordable to about 70% of AMI. Now they're eligible up to 80% of AMI, but if we pegged a house price for someone at 80, no one would actually qualify, right? If you made $1 less, you wouldn't be able to get a mortgage to pay for that expensive of a house. If you made $1 more, you'd be above 80% AMI. So we try to find a price point that's, using a calculator that we have that puts in some allowances for some existing personal debt, which of course is an assumption. We have to estimate mortgage interest rates, homeowners insurance, and all the other factors. And the magic 8-ball spits out a number and says, okay, for a 2-person household or for a 3-person household or one person, this price point would be about 70 or about 72. We've got the AMI, the current AMI data in there. So it takes all the magic info and it says, here's what AMI that price would be approximately. So
Just curious.
well, that's where we got the 160 and the 188. They're at about 70% AMI now that's for a 1-person household, because we price the 2-bedroom homes for a 1-person household, and we price the 3-bedroom homes for a 2-bedroom household. That doesn't mean that the buyers have to be 1- and 2-person households. They can be larger, of course. We don't allow single-person households to purchase 3-bedroom or larger homes. You have to be a minimum of 2 people to purchase a 3-bedroom home, and that's why we price the 3 bedrooms for a 2-person household. So if you are a 3-bedroom household, if you are a 3-person household and you're looking to buy one of the 3 bedrooms, your AMI cutoff for 80% will be higher than that 2-person household. but we don't change the price. You know, you're 3 people, so you have to pay more. The price is the price, and it's calculated for the 2-person household.
Mary?
Did that make sense?
Yes, yes. I guess if I may, just
Sorry.
say 70% AMI on the 160. And this is the income level is 70% of 160.
No. 160,000 is the price of the house. The 70% is relative to median income. And median income, those stats come out from HUD, and they are updated every year, and they give data for different sizes of households, right? So the cutoff for a 2-person household, for example, 80% of AMI is about 77,000. So that means a 2-person household, if they make under 77,000, I think 77.4 or something like that, if they make under that level, they are eligible. Below that, it doesn't matter how much they make, they're below the cutoff, so they're eligible. They just have to make enough that they can afford a mortgage on a $160,000 house.
I just wanted to say too, the charts, the income guideline charts are on our website for anybody that's interested.
Mary?
I was actually going to ask about the mortgage rates, because the mortgage rates are really pretty high.
Yeah.
And how is that going to impact, because $160,000 house, 180, depending on members and that are going to be inhabitants of the house. How do you calculate the mortgage of a home like this with the people who can actually perhaps afford a house at a lower mortgage rate? The mortgage rates are really high
Yeah.
now.
So we do, as I was saying, in my affordability calculator that we use to help us figure out that selling price, we can adjust the mortgage rate. And so we do try to put a current rate in there. We work with a variety of mortgage lenders. We don't give first mortgages ourselves. So all of our buyers are going to a local financial institution. They can choose who they want to go to, whether it's Alternatives or CFCU or Tompkins. Most of the local lenders are familiar with the specific structure, ownership structure of the community housing trust. They have all different rates and different policies. One might give a special discounted interest rate for the community housing trust. Another might say, well, we can't discount the rate, but we won't require PMI, private mortgage insurance. And so the homeowner, and we provide, I don't personally, but my colleagues in our homeownership department provide a lot of guidance for the home buyers. They're new to this. And so they get some assistance through the financing process. But ultimately, of course, it's their financial institution that sets the terms and the policies. We're trying to account for what current rates are. And so when we've calculated that 160 or 188 in our spreadsheet, that's including an interest rate that might be around 7 or 7.25%, which are the crazy rates that we have right now. If we had the ability to drop it to 5 or 5.5 and knew that everyone could get that, that would actually mean that that buyer could afford more house, because they're going to be paying low interest, which means the same payment is going to be on a bigger purchase price, because less of it is going to interest. We're getting into speculative right now. It doesn't matter. The reality is that we have very high interest rates, so we are accounting for that in the prices. We also provide down payment assistance, which basically means that the homeowners can get from us it's usually structured as a forgivable loan. And so each year that they stay in the house, a portion of that is waived. It's usually 10 years, although sometimes the source of the funds means that the terms are a little bit different. But that can be $15,000 to $20,000 typically that the home buyer gets to put towards the down payment and the closing costs. So that helps them. It means that they're going to be taking a lower mortgage, because they'll have more down payment to contribute.
But it is a loan.
It is a zero interest, zero payment loan. So they're not paying any payment on that. And as I said, a portion of it is waived each year or written off each year as they stay in the house. In most cases, if they stay in the house 10 years, that entire down payment assistance award is waived, and they wouldn't pay it back any of it.
So if they moved after 5 years, they'd be repaying some of the down payment.
In most cases, again, we sometimes have them that are pure grants. It really depends on the source of the funds that are used. We do have different pots of money that are used for the down payment assistance. My colleague Delia, who many of you know, is the one who manages all that. So I don't know the exact pot she's using for the anticipated down payment assistance for the Sears houses or for Cleveland. So I can't speak to the exact terms those buyers will have.
Are there residency requirements? So for example, someone has had to live in Tompkins County for a certain period of time before they're eligible to apply?
No, those are not required by any of our funders or by us. Somebody might be moving into the area, for example, and they're going to be a resident here. So they are just as eligible as somebody who's lived here their whole life. Fernando, I see you playing with the calculator. Do you have any other follow-ups? Oh,
Oh, here, let me,
Keep finding 2020 data and whatever. So,
yeah.
I don't know.
here,
It's,
I will.
oh, it's just fine. I can live on my own time.
Yeah, do we have any more questions at the moment? Do we have any questions about the resolutions? We have two, we can do them one at a time. The extension for Project One, the Cleveland Avenue, which is to be extended through next September. Just to make sure all the paperwork is done, right?
Paperwork, which paperwork are we talking about?
I mean, the project for, sorry, why don't we do Sears since we were just talking about Sears? So projects 4 and 5, which the extension for that is through to April. Are there any questions about that?
I'm just gonna say that this was a lot to ingest. This was a lot. And there are quite a few delays. And I'm really concerned about anticipating some of these timeframes to me may be really short. And that you may not be able to meet the timeframes that you are suggesting. But
Well, for the Sears project that we were just discussing, it's going on the market in like 2 weeks.
yes, okay.
Yeah,
but-
those homes are basically complete other than some interior finishing.
Okay, but what about the Cleveland Ave one?
So Cleveland Avenue is not far behind. It's a separate situation in terms of the timing. We actually originally had intended to put Cleveland and Sears on the market at the same time. But because Cleveland is in the new flood zone, I think Anissa alluded to the LOMA. And if you're not familiar with that process, a LOMA is a letter of map amendment, which is a process to go through FEMA that basically says this house has been engineered and built to basically lift it out of the floodplain. And they will evaluate that. And if they say, yes, all of the requirements have been met, then it's basically like FEMA saying, well, you're surrounded by a floodplain, but you're on this magic little island, so you're fine. And then that home will not be required to get flood insurance. This is going to be critical to the affordability of that home because flood insurance is many thousands of dollars. And so the reason we pulled Cleveland out of selling it along with Sears is because we can't sell that house until we have the LOMA, because a home buyer won't be able to finance it at the price point with the addition of several $1,000s of flood insurance.
Excuse me, can I just clarify? The LOMA is essentially the waiver
Correct.
that assesses that
Yeah.
the height of the structure is sufficient that it doesn't require the insurance.
So it's a letter of map amendment is what LOMA stands for. And what we have to do to obtain that is our engineers at TG Miller will do an elevation certificate, which is a very detailed elevation survey. They will submit it on our behalf with other documentation to explain what measures have been taken. And then FEMA will evaluate that. And in some weeks or months, they will come back with this letter of map amendment. At that point, we can sell Cleveland, because at that point, the buyer can go to the bank and say, I'm paying 100, that's a 3-bedroom, so that one will be 188. I can finance that house. I won't have to pay $4,000 or $5,000 of flood insurance. Right now, if they had to go and finance that with the added cost of the flood insurance, it would not be affordable. So that's the holdup there. Otherwise, that house would be ready to put on the market very shortly. So I'm not concerned about getting the construction done. Our concern and the reason for the longer time frame for that one is the LOMA process, which is an unknown.
Yes, that's what I'm concerned about.
Yeah.
Because this is FEMA that's involved in this and gets the approval.
Yes,
And I have concerns about FEMA.
we do too. And that was the reason for pushing it out to September. I don't have any reason to think it's a process that will take them a year, but we honestly don't know. And we pushed it out a year because we think it could take them 4, 5, 6 months. If it takes 4, 5, 6 months, we should be fine, because we will have a home buyer, identified and can get them under contract and so forth. And it's just that FEMA process that's adding extra time in there. Yeah, of course.
Yes.
I move the resolution.
Okay,
For the Thayer Street projects
Okay.
5 and 4.
Which one
Okay,
for
is there a
Sears?
second? Yes, for Sears, 4 and 5. Is there a second for the Sears Street Development Projects 4 and 5? Carl seconds. So any further discussion? Okay, all in favor? Right. Okay, great. And then do we have a motion for Project 1, the Cleveland Ave project, which would be extended to next September? A second?
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? Not, okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Excellent. Okay, thank you for coming and good luck navigating.
The details of the open
I have
house,
another question.
that for Sears, and when Cleveland happens, that one as well.
Leslie, before you go, are there any that you can share with us, any upcoming projects for single-family homes in the city?
So we have the parcel that we purchased, it's now, I think, going on 2 years ago. How's the time go by so fast? I don't know. But, at 113, 115 Cleveland, and that one we have not developed yet. That one.
Was that the one where the fire occurred? Okay.
Yeah, we've been in some discussions with Southside Community Center, given the neighborhood being adjacent to the church, being adjacent to Southside, they're really interested in that location and that parcel, and we're looking at, what kind of collaborative, process we can have for the development of that one. So we've been sitting on that one, also because I'm juggling too many houses to keep building more all at the same time.
Yeah.
But that's gonna be coming around the pipe soon. The other project that we have in development is just outside the city. It's in Varna. So it's close, but obviously it's not in the city, so it won't be relevant for IURA funding.
Okay.
But it may be a good, residence opportunity for someone who, works at 1 hour downtown, since it's quite accessible.
Good, good, all right.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Thank you
Leslie.
guys for your support, as always.
Thank you.
It's wonderful working with the
Thanks,
IURA.
Leslie.
Okay, our next topic for discussion is the CDBG spend down remediation. And I wasn't here for the last meeting, but I was at the most recent IURA board meeting where this was also talked about. I'm gonna let Anissa talk about it, but the bottom line is that as everybody, as we were sort of prepared to know, we technically are outside of the timeline for spending down our CDBG funds. And we have a few suggestions for possible ways to manage it. And I will let Anissa proceed.
Okay, so first of all, probably while we're talking, we want to refer to the timeliness workout plan that Nels submitted to HUD that's in your packet. And then I also put at your places a little more information about reprogramming CDBG funds. We started, or there was some discussion at the last meeting. Actually, Steve, who couldn't be here today, brought up the question, is there a way to reallocate funds from one program to another? We call that reprogramming. And as I was doing our minutes and listening to the recording, it really, it really became evident how much there is to take in about what the steps are to do that, how it can sometimes be simple, it can sometimes be difficult, or involve more steps. So, so that's why I wanted to provide this handout to you all. So on the second page of Nels's workout plan, which I'm
The
sure.
workout plan is not a draft anymore. It's been
Sorry,
submitted,
I didn't realize it had that watermark when I.
but it has been submitted.
Yes, it has
Okay,
been
great.
submitted, and accepted. On the second page, there is a chart that's very helpful of where kind of CDBG funds are clogged, if you will, or moving very slowly through the process. So you'll see what the balance was as of June 25th in the far right column of each of those projects. Now, Mary, you probably saw in the minutes, but I corrected myself because I had a misunderstanding about how the sidewalk contracts do or do not save money. So you probably saw that part, but that was a concern. So it has to do with mobilization costs. It costs a lot to move and stage sidewalk projects. So the city likes to suggest that that the contractor pair them for maximum kind of savings. So it wasn't by the
Right.
process that I described.
Yep, just interrupt, like hypothetically, if we were and are maybe going to talk about the sidewalks, like adding additional sidewalk project to the existing sidewalk development, sidewalk improvement district project with the same firm, like just makes it cheaper than like having like piecemeal projects. Yeah.
I just wanted to put that out because that was something that was discussed and you had questions about it in the last meeting. Okay, so where are we? So Nels talks about each of the projects, which, you know, homeowner rehab, as you know, has been one. I've checked in with Delia again since that time. They have submitted a $32,000 voucher that Charles and Kim are reviewing right now. And they have just completed a project for which they will voucher. So there is some vouchering pending for that project. So maybe, I mean, might bring the balance down to about $200,000 when that's processed.
You're talking about the INHS rehab program, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, just in terms of if we're all looking at the chart that's on page 18 of the agenda, just looking at there's a chart of the sort of 4 programs that are that says that are primarily responsible for missing the timeliness target. Do we see that chart? It has INHS, then Cecil Malone. Mary, are we all on the same, looking at the same chart? Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes, at the time, yeah, you're looking at the paper copy, yeah, so, yes. So, okay, so we talked about NHS rehab. And so, now you'll see the bullet list there, it describes that. So Cecil Malone, as we know, $160,000, but didn't get underway soon enough for them to voucher. It hasn't gotten underway yet. There may be a silver lining, which we will discuss after this meeting. It's separate, not after the meeting, after this portion of the discussion. It's separate from this. I'm just giving you a heads up. So, but Cecil Malone is on track to be completed in 2025. So that should be gone by next June, which is when our timeliness test is. The Economic Development Loan Fund has a lot of money in it, $271,000 right now. Plus, remember, there's repayments on the loans that come in every month. But there hasn't been a lot of demand this year currently for businesses coming forward asking for loans. So it's been a slower year for whatever reason. That can always change, with different initiatives that the city is doing, things that happen on the commons, what have you. It just so happens that there haven't been a lot of loans issued, so the balance is very high. And Shared Kitchen Ithaca, as you'll notice on our grant summary, they just submitted their first quarterly report and voucher. Took a long time for that kitchen to get fitted out and to be able to start accepting members. However, the balance there is pretty low, $32,000.
Lisa, can I just interrupt quick to just say, bottom line is it's a gap of $71,000, which in the big scheme of things is not that much, but nonetheless, that's the amount that we are short, essentially.
For the timeliness test that took place in June.
Yeah.
Then the rest of the workout plan, as I know you know, Nels projects kind of, how much with the incoming money, like how we need to work through the year, what we need to be cognizant of to basically hopefully push out the door every year, or I'm sorry, every month. And so it kind of ends up looking, it ends up looking on the last page, 7 of 7, you'll see that in the best of all possible worlds, each month, there would be $74,000 expended. With the new money that we have coming in, that rate, then takes us out at like way above 1.5 times the allocation amount that the timeliness test uses. So in the best possible world, each month, the various projects would collectively spend down that amount. And then you see what the cumulative draw would be that would get us to May 2026 with, being under the spending limit. So the steps that, we're taking to prevent a future backlog, page 6, this has to do with like a lot more monitoring, checking in. We tend to check in a lot on the projects that are going slow. Usually we start doing that like in January because we have 6 months to remediate that, but heightening our expenditure reporting. We're looking more, every year we have to do risk assessments for the projects that come through. So being more vigilant about the risk assessment. If they've never done a project with us, their risk at not being able to spend money will be higher just because they are new to the process. It'll take them longer to get acclimated probably. They'll probably have more questions on their vouchers, et cetera. So the risk rating is something that we'll use to more accurately target the projects that are likely to have some difficulties, more than just using their staff report, their quarterly report they send in. Doing environmental reviews can really slow down a project if, if I don't have enough time to get to it, or I don't prioritize it, or for any reason it waits for a while. That delays a project's being able to move forward, because especially in construction projects, no project can begin until for all projects, none can begin until the environmental review is done. For construction projects, the environmental review is more complex, so it takes me longer to do. But during that time, they have to wait for me to do it. So it's about getting those done earlier. We're gonna look at some processes that Charles uses for the contracts, and probably try to really create a different process for or a more efficient process, I should say, for organizations that have an active contract with us already and are, kind of going to be doing the same project in the following year, such as security deposits. Perhaps it's modifying, finding a way to do like an amendment to their current contract instead of a whole new contract. We're going to see if that's something that we can do, because every time a contract is made, it has to go back to our attorney to look at it. It has to, so it's just a very long process, because then we're beholden to the attorney's calendar and so on. So, and another thing on the last bullet is consider reducing whether temporarily or permanently, the number of CDBG activities that each action plan funds. So, when we have 14 CDBG activities and they're all at a different level of spending and some are really big and some are really small, it's a lot more monitoring than it would be if there were 8, for example. So, any questions about
Yeah,
this?
I appreciate all of those comments about what could be done to avoid this in the future. But the issues that we have, that we have in front of us are not issues that are relevant to any of those comments. Those like the rehab program or the pedestrian, that chunk of Cecil A. Malone, those are not the result of sort of slowness in those target work, adjustments. Do you know what I mean?
So you're saying.
I totally appreciate that it's important to do some self-analysis of the office.
Uh-huh.
But so there's a bunch of those things there that are about self-analysis, about
Mhm.
like the sort of the kind of work that you all have to do.
Mhm.
But the 4 activities primarily responsible for missing the timeline are not missing the timeline because of the office.
Oh, you're saying that there are other reasons that cause them to be slow?
I assume that these issues do not have to do with the speed with which you do your work. It has to do with the barriers that they had implementing their projects.
Okay.
That's all I'm saying. So that, just to comment that I don't think we think that those are the most, or personally, I wouldn't think that that bullet point is like
I will say-
collectively, like the slowness, the timeline issues are not the result of, inefficiencies in the office. Although it sounds like there are some that you guys think that you could make, these issues don't seem to be, essentially something that you all could have done something about
Well,
fundamentally.
I will say, I think the environmental reviews, I have to do an environmental review for each homeowner rehab project that comes through. And they get approved at various times. So even in 2022, 23, et cetera, 24. And when they send me an environmental review, it could be, for example, during the action planning process. So we might have a lot of other work that we're doing. It might be hard for me to do. So in that case, I would say, yeah, my environmental review can make them slower. And secondly, oh God, what was the other thing?
Not $200,000 slower.
Well, and also the contracting, as you know, when you look at the grant summary, we could be more efficient at that. That does cause some delay. Sorry, Fernanda, did you have a question for me?
Yeah, well, I assume you already probably do this, have like standard voucher forms so that you get the information you need from,
Could you say that again?
you probably already do this, but do you have standard voucher forms that everybody uses so make sure you get the right information? And on the environmental review, you do them?
I do them.
Is there,
It would be very costly to have a consultant do them.
no, I wonder, the applicant themselves filling some form,
Actually, we do.
then you checking that as opposed to you.
They can't fill in the forms, but for example, to expedite things a few years ago, INHS now pays CG Miller to do the toxic site assessment at each site. So that makes it
Okay.
go faster. And they certify that they haven't found toxics. There are new radon requirements, which INHS actually proactively deals with when they have new construction. So that doesn't usually require me to go out to the new construction site to assess the radon. So there are some things that they can do. They often provide me, sometimes they write to the state Historic Preservation Office to make sure that there aren't any historic preservation requirements that are necessary, as what happened at Habitat's Aurora Street, South Aurora Street. that seriously delayed that. So there are things that they do that,
Okay.
that help expedite. Yes.
I was reading through, this backlog and have some real concerns about the, the agency's efficiency. And I agree with Cheyenne. I think the office can do as much as they can to move projects forward. Then it's up to the agency itself to actually move forward with spending down what they're responsible to do. They know what the limitations are or the timing is. So I have real concerns to the beginning about Cecil A. Malone, that pedestrian fees, and why that wasn't, why that hasn't even started. And I go there every day. I'm down there because I go to Wegmans a lot. I don't see anything happening at all. And if they are going to start, they have needed to have started a few months ago because it's going to be winter soon. And how are they going to finish this project? And I just want to say about contractors in general, I'm going to ask that how is this the city that there's a bid for a contract because they don't have the personnel to do these projects? I know this because I live on a street where we have been promised years back that we would have a road done. And now the city has handed over, I think I spoke about this before, has handed over these contracts. Outside of the city is not, I don't see them, they have given their authority and the power to a contractor to decide when and how they're going to do this. And I don't know what's the city's responsibility. So if the city says, we need to have this done, this is just the city. If we need to have this done by September 2025, then the city's responsible for making sure that that contractor abides by that schedule. Instead of the contractor saying, this is what we are going to do, and you give over that power to another authority. That's what it looks like to me. That something is happening with the contractors, not something that the office is that, and I can appreciate you saying that we could do this, but what's the other entity doing to correct it? I'm not seeing what they are doing.
Okay. Okay, so.
I mean, basically, the question is in these, we know, we've had the folks from the rehab program come and talk with us about their difficulties. But on the issue of Cecil A. Malone Drive, you said that they are going to get started, but it is an issue of the city is putting us in this situation. Between the city and the contractor has put the IURA under this situation.
Yes, I guess you could say that. And you brought up something last meeting that I think that we can consider, which is if we fund a public facilities project such as sidewalks or Southside Community Center or, some other thing that falls into public facilities that will be in agreement with the city, we can try to stipulate by when. I mean, there's always a contract expiration date, but perhaps we could be more proactive. I don't know. We'd need to talk. I don't know what all that would look like, but have an additional stipulation in the contract that it needs to be, initiated by a certain date. That was something I think you suggested.
And
yeah.
one of the things that Nels talked about at the board meeting last month was that one of the things you can do with these city projects is say, because of because of the obligations the agency is under with our funder, with HUD, that the contractor has to be told, okay, you can still stage this in a way that's going to save money or is most efficient, but this project has to be the first one in the spring. It can't be the last one in the fall. So put some stipulations right at the front end.
Mhm.
Do you have any other questions about the overall timeliness documents? I say this partially because we could probably spend a long time talking about all kinds of things, but do we have any last lasting points?
So if we want to briefly talk about this, and we can come back to this, but I just thought it would be useful for you all to kind of have more information about what happens. So say there's money clogged in the pipelines. Say at some point, INHS, Economic Development Loan Fund, Cecil A. Malone, or somebody comes to us and is like, yeah, we're not going to be able to spend that, or we determine that. And we want to reprogram funds. We have done that in past years. Sometimes it's small amounts, sometimes it's large amounts. But the thing to know about that is that it changes the action plan. Anything that moves funds from one project to another, whether it's like a big jump in the amount of funds or a small one, it makes a change in that action plan that requires procedure on our part because HUD requires it. And we're guided by the citizen participation plan and how that happens. So minor amendments, which are discussed actually on page 2 of this, this document I gave out, you can see the requirements are much lower. If it's, if only $25,000 or less than $25,000 is being reprogrammed and the project's purpose is pretty much the same as, kind of the original intention of the funds, then it's a minor amendment. We just, put in a little note in IDIS and HUD will check it later. They don't prioritize that and we can go forward. However, when it's more money, which is something that's going to be more likely since we have a lot of money that needs to be reprogrammed, that could potentially need to be reprogrammed. We have a lot of money we need to expend. Then it's going to be a much more lengthy process. So the main thing to remember is that that type of change, a substantial amendment, requires us to notify the public that we're going to change the action plan. There needs to be a public hearing, and Common Council needs to approve it. So because of meeting dates and blah, 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 all this stuff, it can take a long time. You'll see, did I not do my actual total? I'm sorry, I thought I totaled it out for you in my document, but so really this could take as little as 25 days, which it's never gonna take that little, unless all the stars are aligned. I'd say at least 30 days, never less. I mean, you would have to have no weekends, you would have, whatever. So, but theoretically, if you added up all those numbers, it would be like, 25 days, or it could take as long as like 75 days. So, it really depends, on how fast we want to move that through the process. And sometimes there is no time constraint, so we move slowly, and sometimes we got to move with urgency. So I just want to let you know, because it's like for a substantial amendment for, $25,000 or more, or the reprogram funds going to something that's really different, we got to tell the public, and Common Council has to be involved, and there's steps. And in the past, usually HUD has notified me within a few days or a few weeks, I would say, that the substantial amendment has been removed or reviewed. They've let me know if there's any questions. In the way back past, they might never get in touch with us. So after 45 days, it's approved. We haven't had a lot of HUD rejecting such things, but we're in a new era, so we don't know what might happen. So there might be we might have to redefine something for them, or that could slow down too. So those are all things that we'll be keeping in mind in the coming months as we try to reach our spend down. Any questions? Okay. So, yes.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions about the sort of just elements of the various chores if we were to proceed in such a way where we would have a minor or a major reprogramming? Any questions about that?
I just in terms of committee responsibilities. So for pretty much all the that I can think of, the CDBG projects, we would probably be the primary committee. I mean, I can see some, economic development certainly that committee.
Yeah.
But many of the projects, I think, would come to us.
Yeah, many of them would. It also depends which project the funds are coming from. So if the project funds are coming from housing or another housing project, it would come to you. If they were coming from an economic development project, they would go to Economic Development Committee. So, but we do the majority, and NI does the majority, yeah.
Anything else? Okay, so we have a guest here to talk about a possible Cherry Street sidewalk extension. Ari Hama, is that correct?
Oh, I'm glad you brought your own easel. I was just like, oh, I need to go find an easel. Want me to take care? So while Ari's setting up, I'll just say that I had the pleasure of meeting with Ari and Basil from engineering the other day. It came to our attention that there is an opportunity to pair a Cherry Street sidewalk extension with Cecil Malone. This is not a proposal right now to do that, but it's explaining how it would work if it were to be done. You all have discussed many times in the past that the place on Cherry Street that at the edge of Tabor that has been thought to be extremely dangerous, where folks need to walk in the street because there's no sidewalk. Various people driving by have said, they're really worried about the pedestrians, the moms and dads and small children, people with mobility issues, et cetera. So that's what this project could do if there's a way to raise funds for it, to pair it with Cecil Malone. Basically, the mobilization cost would be reduced. So, and in the past, I think it was 2 years ago, but we discussed it last year with Peggy, when Peggy was a the sidewalk coordinator, that there was more interest in doing that other section of Cherry Street than there was in doing Cecil Malone. And she explained that, it was part of a plan to connect them all. So Ari's here to talk about how it could look, what sections will be connected. And Ari, I looked in your title of your signature. Are you the sidewalk coordinator or do you have a different title? Okay, sidewalk program manager. So Peggy was his predecessor. And so in the engineering department, please feel free to take it away.
Good morning. It's my first meeting live, so I'm kind of nervous. I'll try my best.
People can come up and look at it if they want to.
So Cherry Street is like a heavily trafficked pedestrian road and as well as seasonal road. I will explain it on the map because it's much easier to know how it's important. So we know West Hill is not connected to the downtown area, and it would fence by sidewalks. Okay, probably walk from the West Hill into the Black Diamond Bridge, going into Seasonal Road, but they don't have sidewalk currently, and we're gonna have it by October, hopefully, gonna do it. And from there, they can go to Wegmans and the downtown to the city center. Last year, we were lucky to have the fund for doing Seasonal Lagoon, but during my inspection and my measurement, I interacted a lot with the residents of the Ethica Art House, and I got a lot of complaints like why they don't have sidewalks. And if you see the location of Ethica Art House, which is a affordable housing apartment built in 2021, it has 124 units in it. It's kind of isolated from everything. It's like an island, like surrounded by water and no sidewalks going to any place. So I was concerned about this point, like why do they have to be isolated? Why they don't just have any roads to walk on it? So I was lucky exactly 45 days ago to meet Nils at NISA when they do their routine checks on us on how the project's going down. I told them my concerns and they asked me if I can suggest or apply or do something about, talk it to. So for Citizen Malone, we will have sidewalks, but Ethica Art House will still be disconnected. So my suggestion or my request for that fund is connecting Art House with the Tabor Street, which we were fortunate to have sidewalks by the improvement they did for us, and connected to the Black Diamond Trail, and from there to the Citizen Balloon, going to the Beckman's, and from Tabor Street going to the downtown area, and from the Black Diamond going to the West Hill. And we have another affordable housing on the West Hill, which this will directly benefit them all, because there might be people working in downtown, they don't want to go all that way to Wegmans and going back to downtown. So this will be not only benefit the Ethica Art House complex, is gonna benefit all West Hill and low income or affordable housing apartments in that area. So why this is important, okay? Accessibility, connectivity, connecting all the places, the equity, and the safety. Because this area is considered as an industrial area. You talked about you are walking on it every day. So you know there's trailers, there are like heavy equipments moving around, and they don't have no sidewalks, no street shoulders, and poor traffic control over there. They don't have any stopping signs here, no stopping signs on the end of Tabor Street too. So building these sidewalks and connecting them together will bring more attention to improving the traffic infrastructure over there too, which is like a starting point to do all that together. The accessibility, a lot of like the residents of Ethica Art House are low income, so they can't afford cars. And I saw children walking on street. I saw people with disabilities, like with wheelchairs on the street, which was like my main concern, like for 7 months, like from last September, October till like this March, this June. The equity. So we are serving a low-income neighborhood, ensuring that our residents have safe, accessible infrastructure. And benefits, we will provide continuous safe route between homes, workplaces, working in Wegmans and major businesses in this area. A lot of people working downtown and connecting the West Hill also with these Art House residents. So we will give them that feeling of that they are not isolated. So connecting them. And if I'm not wrong, there's one bus stop over here, and I'm not sure if there's any bus going there. I tried to check it yesterday, but I couldn't find any like schedule for it.
I think there previously was, and it was discontinued is what I thought. Do you have different information?
I live on West Hill up on Warren Place. So this trail and the new bridge is, I see people and I'm a runner too. So the Cherry Street for me was always an issue. And Tabor, the sidewalk has just, because there's has just done the sidewalk on Tabor, because that wasn't always there. That's relatively new. And how that happened all of a sudden is really kind of interesting to me. So the Our House residents, there is parking underneath, so they do have cars. That is an industrial area because there was a let's see. Yes, yes, so that's true, that's scrapyard, what, they moved, so they're gone. So all of that on the other side of Our House is just like, needs to be at some point developed in some really acceptable way, I think, for that end of town. So when you talk about the folks that are across Floral Ave too, there's an issue about how they're gonna cross the road there too, because there's not a lot of sidewalk area that goes down all the way down Floral Ave. That's an issue also. So the trail doesn't go all the way down. And then there are property owners who, I don't know how that's gonna happen, whether you would get that there too. But and then there are these areas that need some sort of beautification around our house. That's a problem too. But I always wondered about the maintenance of all this too. Who's gonna maintain, because no one maintains the bridge, and there's a sign on it too. You can be in a wheelchair, you're not gonna get across there or do anything in the wintertime. The bus stops actually on State Street. That's where the bus stop is. When you come down, that's where it is. It's on the other side of all of this. So you must have taken that journey yourself to see where the bus is, because it is not in front. There's no stop there. And that is an industrial area, and that end of town is isolated. And then I always hear about something more that's not so residential may be coming up. But that's just hearsay.
So the maintenance, I will go back to my supervisor, the engineering director, Tim, because to be honest, I'm not sure about it.
Yeah.
Probably he will know better, because I guess this is the responsibility of our bridge program. So I will make sure to talk about that. That's correct. Like a lot of people, they don't see the bus stops over there. The developments are not yet sure, like
Happening. They're not happening.
no, like what's going on, what's gonna happen. No one have like a exact idea of what's gonna happen, and then you don't know what is gonna happen. That's a big part of the problem. So if there's development over there, I'm sure they will build sidewalks. But whether this happened like after 10 years, 5 years, should we be like without sidewalks for 510 years? They have for 5 years now. The ramp over there, you're talking about there's no like access from the bridge onto this area. We will have a ramp right at Season 1 between the Black Diamond. And if we have the sidewalks on Cherry Street, that sidewalk will be good. Black Diamond too, and then going to Season Road. Yeah,
I have a question, and I don't know if I'm redirecting them. I mean, I guess for this meeting, I was hoping to hear, we have a project under $60,000, right? We don't?
Specific point at the moment.
Okay.
Right now, we're technically have separate points.
Okay.
Sorry to say that, but we're not, it's not specifically speaking to the previous agenda item at the moment.
All right. Just,
Is it a question related to how much it costs the sidewalk?
yeah, well, now I'm unclear. Like, I thought we had money for the Cecil Malone stretch, and that was the project we're discussing. I mean, clearly, I mean, you don't have to, I'm all for it. You build as many sidewalks as you want, and connecting all this, absolutely, to Tabor. I mean, eventually, I expect, yeah, there'll be a network that'll, but I just,
So,
I'd like to know the available funding and what is the immediate thing that can happen?
I think the question, Fernando, is a good question. Ari is making this proposal. We have been asking about this Cherry Street issue since we started talking about the Cecil B. A. Malone stretch in the first place. So the fact that it's on your radar is really great, and you've been like reading our minds about the need for it, the why make the art house community and all the other folks wait for the developers to decide what to do with their property while they're just sitting there doing nothing with it. I also appreciate that I think was pressure exerted on the property owners on Tabor Street, which, because it was their obligation to put sidewalks in, and I think they were not doing it. So that came from some pressure. So we really appreciate that. Yeah, how much do you think it would cost for these two bits of red on the Cherry Street extension that you're talking about?
We on this small.
Oh.
68.
Okay. Oh, yeah, on the other side of the Cherry.
These are the first. That's the first side from the Diamond Trail going to the to the Ethicard House. Then from Ethicard House to another big small segment of sidewalk we have.
Mm-hmm.
From that sidewalk going to Tabor Street sidewalk.
Mhm.
This will cost $60,842.74.
Say that
Sorry.
again. 62.
$69,842.74.
Round it out to 70,000.
What I'm hoping to do, if you all see these photos, people are walking over here
Yes.
on this area, which is very dangerous. People usually walk here, and you see
Very
there's like
dangerous.
people are walking over there. There's someone with a shopping cart, like probably he was like going onto that sidewalk or that street, and he didn't use that sidewalk because otherwise he will end up with a dead end. So why this is important to save those lives?
Yeah.
I've been there, it's
Yeah.
very dangerous, especially at this section when trailers are like turning into Cherry Street. I did this. I hope it's good enough. That's my design. So I'm hoping. That's my suggestion, to have sidewalk will be adjacent to the curb line because we don't have much of right of way space over there.
Mm.
But be 5 feet width and will be ADA accessible. And that's this side of the street.
Mhm.
About this.
I
It
see.
will not be really, because it's a parking lot, but that's what my software came up with. And this is the connection between the Cherry Street going.
Great.
So,
I will talk about the cost.
no, that's fine.
That's
can
the
wait.
main concern. So escalating the cost, okay, that's very important. I observed that the cost jumped from $24 per square foot of site to $30 last year, okay, just in 1 year. We usually get inflation by increase the cost at 10%, but this year was very different. Costs coordination. We can coordinate three pieces of sidewalks with the civil work to reduce our mobilization costs for the contractor. Mobilization costs, silting costs, and traffic control are lump sum in the bidding documents. So they will charge us a lump sum for the whole project. And how we divide it, we're going to divide it by districts. So District 5 is this low income in fund because of the nature of the classification of the properties that we recycle. They have less money than the other ones. They have around 95,000. So they have less projects. Less projects means the money that's going to be divided in that district and those projects, each project will have higher cost of mobilization and traffic control and surveying. We did able to do it for 6 years according to budget. We can we have all issues outside space and tension and yes, every year. Supply chain uncertainty, which is anything unpredictable and harder. I have another concern, which is I think it's more personal. My concern about the current circumstances of CD wants to come back next year or the year after that to ask for this fund, but there are some concerns about the plan and about the shifting policies and how that's gonna affect that. I remember.
In terms of whether or not CDBG as a program is still funded by the federal government, is what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Asking to suspend all. So I'm not sure. That's just a personal concern that I won't be able to apply for another in future years. Also, I want to say the price change percent of material due to uncertainty or instability of the overall economics and the tariffs that's there. So as I was advising that there are increase of 48% of cost of utilization that contractor charges. So last year was 3% utilization of project. This year that was 37,000, just 48%. That was bidder. Not talking about the highest bidder. We have consumer goods that it's 56,000, 40,000. Concrete price also increased by 6%, and plus increased by 5%. So overall, time prices. So that's why I think this is a very constraint. That's that.
So a question, I forget how many years ago, 2, 3 perhaps, when the former scrapyard, so on the south, the opposite side of the street from Art House, and then the lot that's right next to Art House that's empty now, but I believe they did fence it in, put a chain link fence up there. I think you have it outlined in black on your chart there. When those lots were acquired, there was talk about development. So there was going to be an apartment house on the lot to the west of Art House. There was going to be a big development across the street. But more pertinent now or in the immediate future is the lot next to Art House. If there is a plan to build there, I would be concerned about damage to the sidewalk with the construction. So it would mean we put in a sidewalk, it gets damaged or even torn up with construction, and then I assume that they would then have the responsibility to build it, but it would seem to be a waste of money to put it in now, if construction's going to happen there in the short term.
There's no, I mean, I don't think there are any plans. The developer is sitting around holding on to that land. There's no plans.
Okay.
It's very annoying.
Friend, if there's a plan in 5 years, or in 2 or 3, or I don't know, 10 years, we will still have that asset added to the sidewalk. We will still be able to help immediately the residents over there. If a developer came in and they damage it and fixes the sidewalk again, we still have our assets. So the money, I can't consider it as wasting of money, as we will have an asset by that money. A new sidewalk that help people currently, or maybe like after 10 years, who knows like when that development's gonna happen. So if anyone did anything on that lot or this lot, they will be responsible to restore the sidewalk as same as it was before they step on the sidewalk.
No, I agree with you. But if it was something if there were plans and we were looking at construction starting, say, next year, then I would say we would want to hold off at least on that section. But as long as there are no plans, then you're right, it's probably out at least 2, 3, 4 years, or if not longer.
So got a guy to build that sidewalk over there. So I asked it all, and no one have an idea when that will happen, and it's gonna happen.
I think that there were some projects that were proposed and were moving through planning board, if I'm not mistaken, but the financing fell through. So there are no immediate plans and I don't think that there's been anything approved. And if there are things approved, they're time limited, right? So even if certain aspects of if the planning board approved a apartment complex, the approval doesn't last indefinitely, if, I don't know when it expires, but they need to start moving on it. If they haven't, then they have to come back and talk to planning board again, is my understanding.
Also, I wanna come back to a question you asked it about why system rules not done yet.
Say that again.
Before like I came here, you asked it a question about why Sizzle Balloon is not done yet, the construction. So the main reason was the schedule of the city activities and schools. We have projects on Mitchell Street where there's Bell Sherman Elementary, and we have a lot of projects downtown center of the city. And the priority I would like to give for the school to get it done, to be ready before any school activities start, because there's a lot of children over there. And downtown we have festivals, we have visitors. We were chosen as #1 town in America. So I wanted to
that's right, I forgot.
everything else. That's why Susan will got delayed to this point. It's not about like what the contractor want to do with his project, because we oversight him and we can negotiate or talk to him or instruct him to finish that piece or segment of sidewalk first. But the concerns about the children's safety and the activities in downtown, that's how that made that delay.
Oh, you're the one I need to talk to. Talk later, because I need my street done. You wrote it on
yeah.
the email that I sent.
I got
Okay.
those, the streets,
It's okay.
I think this committee is like very happy to hear all this information, and we can talk about how it, what we might do with this proposal. And, sort of brainstorm, because you're saying that it is basically like something that can get added on to this period sidewalk improvement project contract. And if we don't do it now, then, both costs and funding could, expire. But I did also just want to say, I know you were not part of the agenda and sitting here, but had your office decided to put Cecil Malin at the beginning of the timeline, then the IUR agency might have been able to not be in trouble with our timeline. So I totally understand the school situation, et cetera, but it might be good sometimes when you're getting funding from different sources to understand whether your timeline decisions are aligned with the timeline needs of the funder. So just putting that out there. I get the logic of what you said, but it's also possible that had it been done early in the spring or earlier in the spring, we wouldn't have had to, have this whole like process of reprogramming and like dealing with the HUD again because we're behind our timeline.
I voted in January, so I didn't have much information about the timelines requested for completing Sizzle Balloon and how that's gonna affect the IURA. Also, I was away from the office in March because I got married.
No,
congratulations. You too.
It's more a general question. I understand, I'm not like trying to say you should have done it differently this time, but as you are in this position, thinking about this, and I don't know if we will have more CDBG funds on related to sidewalks in the future, but just in general, like that for the future. It wasn't about this, because I know you just got this job.
But definitely,
Um,
be honest. No,
Yeah. So it's understandable, just more like for a comment for the future.
Question. Did I understand Cesar Millan will get done this year? Did you say that in the beginning? Okay. By in October? Okay, and that will be utilizing this funds that are $160,000?
Yeah.
That have
Okay.
already been allocated, yeah.
Good.
When are they going to start?
Mid-September.
Mid-September?
Yes. We are getting the approval from the railroad authority to do work adjacent to the railroad because these things or these construction within 20 feet of the railroads need special permits and approval from the railroad authority, and they will give us flaggers to control traffic of the trains. So we will be done with that, and we will finish seasonal and October.
Excellent.
It's,
So if those were added, that would be occurring simultaneously or right after, or if this project were paired?
If the Cherry Street,
Then right next to it, we will start Cherry Street. So we have, the contractor have two crew. A crew, they are excavating, and one are forming and pouring concrete. So they follow each other. So a crew will start here excavating, the other crew gonna come and form a concrete. The excavator gonna go to Cherry Street and start excavating over there. So they will follow each other to complete it in 1 month.
Okay, so the Cherry Street's gonna start in September as well?
it has to get, Cecil Malone,
When's the Cherry Street?
It's right after.
If it gets funded.
if it gets funded.
And we'll talk about that after Ari leaves.
Okay.
I'm still watching on YouTube.
True.
and sorry, I feel like today I'm a little bit like a step behind everybody. You just said if it gets funded.
Yeah.
Is there a request for funding from?
We're going to talk
CDBG?
about it after Ari leaves.
Like, this is funding from us or is it funding from? Okay.
Ari, thank you so much. Yep.
Thank you.
And congratulations on the wedding,
And your promotion.
your promotion.
But I will make sure to email you.
Yeah, I'll connect you.
And I just want to say thank you for your concern about the equity issue in the residents of Art House, because that's something we've talked about for a long time, that we stuck those folks kind of in the middle of nowhere. I mean, they got a nice view of the water and all that, but still, if you look the opposite direction, it's like, where'd they put us, you know? So yeah, thank you for that.
Thanks, Ari.
Thank you for making those posters.
Yeah, it's supposed to take this on all posters.
Because saving money is your favorite thing to do. Okay. So, one thing I realized as Ari was talking, I did forget, just jumping back briefly into timeliness, which I guess we'll go back to, the reprogramming discussion rather. For one thing that is also a consideration that I forgot to bring up, but Steve has brought up in a previous meeting, is if the committees of the IURA are really invested in applicants going through a competitive process, like what we normally do, and it starts in December, that whole thing. That's a possibility. They can express that to the IURA board. A competitive process does tend to slow things down because you have to put out the RFP, you have to, go through the whole review process that you guys do and so on. There's also the option of like pre-selecting projects by finding out about projects, that are happening around town, talking to our partners, asking, current, projects who have spent down if they, if they would be ready to implement more funds. That's something I forgot to say, that's more of a policy issue that would need to be decided. So if, for example, if we go through a competitive process to spend down some money immediately, then probably they couldn't complete that project in time, right? Because they have the contract that they're working with this year.
Okay, so if we're formally turning towards discussing this project, if they complete the Cecil A. Malone project, then that alone deals with the spend down issue, correct?
Well, yes, it would have brought us to, being compliant with spend down for last year, but we still, now we're in the situation, now we have all the new money so now we're back up for spend down. So yes, it would, I mean, if it were June, it would have brought us to spend down, but now we're way above it again and that's why we have to monitor how much every month, because we just got our 2025 funding.
Okay, so the other possibility, I suppose, is for the purposes of thinking both about spending down and like this document is primarily about about the timeline for, 2025.
For hitting the timeliness tests next May 31st, 2026. Yeah, working our way through the entire 2025-26 program year.
Okay, so since doesn't appear to be many other projects in the loan fund, that seems like a possibility, but how would we loan money to the city around this Cherry Street project?
So what could happen is, because there's CDBG funds in the Economic Development Loan Fund, and that would seem to be the most likely place that we reprogram funds from right now. It wouldn't be a loan anymore. We'd reprogram it as funds that were used for a sidewalk. So that's a change in use from loans to public facilities construction. So that's why it requires, and it would be over $25,000.
Oh, yeah.
So that's why it would require a public process that I talked about where.
Yeah, but this is much longer than the timeline that Ari brought up.
Well, that's why, so I think one thing that we wanted to learn from you all is there general support for this project? If there's general support for the project from the committee, that will be reported to IURA. However, the proposal, if they're proposing, which they are, will go to the Economic Development Committee, because it's the Economic Development Committee that has unencumbered funds right now in its loan fund. It has that money that isn't attached to another project. It can be freed immediately if Common Council approves it. But yeah, it's a tight timeline, because if IURA approves this, if the Economic Development Committee approves it, that would be next week, I think. Then it goes to IURA. If IURA approves it, then we put out a public notice, and then it goes to Common Council next month, September. So it would happen very quickly.
But then also it has to go to HUD.
Yes, so go to Common Council, there'd be a public hearing. If the public's like, no way do we want that, then probably Common Council would take more time to study it. Then it would probably take another month. If they say right away, yes, we want to do that, then we put in the substantial amendment process, then it goes to HUD. There's a lot of unknowns right now with HUD, like I said. In the past, they've been fairly swift to be able to look at our substantial amendments. But if for some reason they don't look at it, I mean, I will reach out to the HUD office and let them know it's coming. They don't have the staffing, if they can't look at it or whatever, yeah, it would be delayed that amount of time. So the city could undertake the risk if the NEPA were done. Because I will do the environmental assessment. So they can't work unless they do an environmental assessment. But like we tell all grantees, the contract can be backdated to when it was approved, when the action was approved. If the environmental assessment is ready and the grantee wants to start work immediately, they do so at their own risk. If for some reason HUD denies it or whatever, then the city would be on the hook to pay for it.
So it's like the city would be on the hook with the loan until we were able to officially reprogram it as a project instead of a loan?
Well, I don't think it could be used as a loan at all because it's not an economic development activity. The loan fund is for economic development activities that create jobs, basically.
Mm.
In an oversimplified way of describing it, it does more than that, but, so, this, it can't, I will ask Nels if there's another pathway it can be a loan, but, it would be taking it out of the loan fund, basically. Taking it out, moving it over to another project, that's what reprogramming is. That changes the action plan. That's why we have to go through this process of public comment, just like the action plan goes through public comment.
Nothing. So my understanding then is that the city could take on the responsibility of doing this extra work, the extra 60, whatever, $1,000, with the hope that we would pay for it, the IRA would pay for it. If we don't pay for it, in other words, things don't work out, HUD doesn't approve, for example, the reprogramming, then the city would be looking at this coming out of their budget. Am I understanding?
Okay, I think this is, okay, so I don't think the city would proceed with it unless they had a commitment that IRA was going to reprogram the funds. I don't think they'd do it and then, if they, what you're talking about, if the funds were reprogrammed and the action wasn't approved by HUD by the time that they were to get started, then they would have that decision to make, and we'd talk to them about that in advance. But I don't think there's a world in which this project would happen unless there was the commitment of these funds, which I see Mary nodding. So, and when I talked to them, when I consulted with them earlier, I asked, okay, if it doesn't get funded this year, when would all of this get completed? And the answer is over multiple years. They would use the funds that are in that district sidewalks improvements, but they have other projects they need to do near ACS. There's some other projects in the West Hill District that are, that have a need. And so they wouldn't be able to do this in one fell swoop with the money that currently exists in that program budget.
Right, but I guess what I'm saying is that we can start the process, but we cannot guarantee that we're going to get approval to reprogram these funds. So certainly not before they need to get started with the work.
But
Yeah.
perhaps if it was like in the process of being sent after Common Council, like hypothetically Common Council approves it and it is just in the review for reprogramming stage with HUD, they would have the confidence that it was going to be approved? I mean, obviously right now
I
they
would say,
wouldn't do
I think
it,
in the
but
past, that's normally how it's worked. I had two minds about putting on the HUD, how many days it could take HUD to do this, because in the past, they have approved our substantial amendments. It doesn't seem like there's a reason not to approve a public facilities project. I just, this could be coming from my own feelings of uncertainty about the local, the climate. But in the past, when we've done substantial amendments, we haven't been questioned by our HUD field office.
Right. So, yeah, I understand that. What I'm saying is and maybe I'm misunderstanding what you said, the city is not looking for a guarantee from us. They just want to see the action started before they would feel comfortable in beginning the construction work.
Yes, that's my understanding.
Okay.
And
There's no way we could
that
give
question
them a
can be
guarantee.
clarified. I'll let Nels know that question came up so that can be clarified at the IRA board meeting or before, or, because that's a good question. Yeah.
so I guess funds, oh wait, Fernando, you had a question from before.
No, the question was answered. Thank you.
So, maybe I can put this together, into a hypothetical motion, into a motion saying, basically just expressing our support for reprogramming $70,000 of the, Economic Development Loan Fund. And I don't know if we need a motion for this, or it's just something to tell the Economic Development Fund that we heard this presentation and we think it's a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can all, I mean, people can express whether there's any dissent, but yeah, I think it would go forward just as a recommendation that, for example, and I heard about this, and it seems like from where I'm sitting, it seems like there's some strong support for this. So conveying that to them, that information, it's not a resolution, but yeah, like, you strongly like to see it happen. It's a recommendation. Yeah. Or you can do what you said. You can do a resolved right here and be like resolved, economic develop, and I have strong support for this, and I don't know. I think either way is possible.
Is there any dissent or concerns that you'd like to pass along to the Economic Development Committee? Assuming we all know they're going to know the same things we know about the timeliness or sort of questions about whether the city will approve to do it. We're generally in favor.
Yeah, in favor. And I guess, I don't know if we want
Do we
to,
want
the
to?
motion state the need for, to advance this action expeditiously. Yeah.
Yes, yes. Okay, so the motion is, the NI committee is in favor of using the economic development funds to complete Cherry Street sidewalk up to the Cecil A. Malone Drive intersection, and expeditiously. Expeditiously. We support it and we want it to be expeditious.
Seconded.
All in favor?
I know. And I said that, I think it's because I say it sometimes, maybe,
Yes.
I don't know.
Really gotta
I
get it in my
sometimes say
head.
B instead of A.
There's no Cecil B. Okay, great. It would be amazing if that could actually happen. Yeah, fingers crossed. Okay, grant summary.
Okay, it's basically, I haven't added any more no's to the list for this, since June. I mean, before June. So if there's any particular projects, like I mentioned, homeowner rehab has a voucher in right now, but it's in the approval stage, so you won't see it in the expended column yet.
Okay, so not to belabor this whole timeline situation, but like at the very end, it says amount to be expended by June 1st is that same 70,000 that's in our reports.
Yes.
But you're seeing that as soon as we sort of start the distribution of funds,
Yeah.
et cetera, with a round of applications and things that we approved in the spring, then this number is just going to go up.
Yeah, so our program year for 2025, 2026 started on August 1st. So now technically the $686,000 or however much it was in CDBG funds now will be added to this measure. And we'll be seeing it creep down for the next 12 months. Yeah. It's a running
Okay.
total.
Yeah, okay. Is there anything to say regarding staff report?
The annual action plan was approved by HUD. In this, kind of in line with the spend down plan, but something that we have been wanting to do anyways. So I met with OAR when their contract was executed just recently. So that their 2024 contract finally got all the paperwork through. They were waiting on stuff and whatever. So I went to their office and Charles zoomed in and we went through the process of reporting and vouchering. We do this usually over Zoom, and usually only with new projects. OAR has worked with us in the past, but it was CDBG funds, slightly different. And, you know, whatever, staff terms over and what have you. I will say that, so it's my intention to meet with every applicant this year. It might feel redundant, and not every applicant, every funded activity this year, it might feel really redundant for someone like security deposits at Catholic Charities. So the form of that meeting might look more like, do you have questions for us? But I think meeting with them on site, the feedback from OAR was it was really helpful and they liked that, even though they could have asked the questions via email. I do think it also reduces, like, sometimes I think people at organizations hesitate to ask us questions or think we're going to be mean or something, and maybe we are, but you know, I really do try to, you know, solicit questions and let people know, like, anytime, please do ask us questions. We really want to help you before it happens. So don't be afraid of talking with us. So it seems like that gets conveyed better in person. This is something that Steve brought up at the last meeting, that he was aware that Habitat at one point, because Carla brought up homeowner rehab, what are the possibilities for doing stuff in Nate's? Steve brought up that Habitat he had seen doing work at Nate's, doing homeowner rehab. I reached out to Habitat to learn more about that and spoke to Shannon, the executive director, and what she said is they helped facilitate work by loading tools, like doing volunteer recruitment and something else about it, communicating with homeowners. But it was actually Love Knows No Bounds, the organization that we also funded, that did the work. The reason being is Habitat needs a different kind of insurance to do work in mobile home parks and in interiors. And they don't have a ton of experience doing rehab per se, though there is interest in it. I asked, well, you know, is that something, I was thinking, like, can you help, like, do projects, you know, on the, you know, INHS, could we reprogram some to them? Their issues, they do not have the breadth of experience. So they can do things like, or they have done things for places, you know, homes in other places, like creating a ramp to the front door, like working on a deck, or possibly re-roofing a one-story house. But again, this all has to do with the kinds of, if they were to do projects like that, they would need different kinds of insurances, because they wouldn't, you know, they would be moving in an interior, like they might be working inside somebody's house instead of like building a house fresh or whatever. So they were open to it, but it wouldn't be something that I think could be done expeditiously because you know, they would have to find the right kind of project. It would probably be a smaller project. It wouldn't spend as much money, which isn't a problem in a normal timeline. They would need more insurance, and they've never worked with CDBG regulations. They've only worked with home regulations, which are different. So there would be a learning curve about what's compliant and what's not. That's about it. I actually on my list of things to report was exactly what Mary asked about with the Historic Ithaca Executive Director, that conversation.
Okay. Any questions? Any other things? Okay. Motion to adjourn then at 10:51. All in favor? Thanks.